football players. Our Liberian people, we choose success. Our Liberian people, we choose success.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another special edition of The Then and Now. I'm your host and presenter, Prince Emil Kroma. Today, the 19th of November, 2018, indeed it's a very special interview. And today of all days, we've got the man that we're going to be interviewing is already face on. So it's just a matter of go. But in the meantime, I want to clean the floor. I want to sweep the floor. For those Liberians that are tuned on, remember the tune? You will understand the language. Tabela. Listen, 7 money day. Soba.
There you go. That's what I'm talking about. Morning champion. Oh, you're taking us way back, Prince.
Indeed.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, indeed. I can go on all night with this particular song. I can see some people already tapping their feet. They can't resist. They're already dancing. Patricia Brown, welcome to the program. Pinsville community, welcome to the program. Bypass community, big up, welcome to the program.
Yep.
Ladies and gentlemen, tonight, as I said, I'm very excited at having a friend and a brother, a man I consider to be a friend and a brother. But today, what we are about to talk about is a country called Liberia, Africa's oldest republic, then and now, as you can see the title. In 1847, this country got its independence. It was questionable though, but that's a topic for another day. Even the motto of the country, the love of liberty, brought us here, also had question marks about it, because as Liberians, indigenous Liberians, became wiser, they started questioning issues of this nature. These questions were to come up in subsequent times that led the country into a desperate and nasty civil war. But before the civil war, there was also the issue of 1980, when allegedly the first indigenous Liberian, in person of Master Sergeant Samuel Kayondo, led 17 men of the armed forces of Liberia, and they overthrew a dynasty. The last one of them, the late President William Tolbert, who was killed in that coup. Samuel Doe led the country for 10 years, and after the 10 years, the country erupted into a civil war. And during that civil war, the only man who was locked in tenebris, who shone light, by my opinion and many others, was a man called George Oppong Weah, who is today the president of the Republic of Liberia. And here today, I've got a man who knows him inside out, upside down, a man whom the president calls by his first name, Joshua, Josh. And today at this interview, I've got none other than Mr. Joshua Zor Bernard. Joshua, welcome to the Den and Now, my friend.
Thanks for having me, Mr. Krumah. It's good to be here and good to see you. I've been following your show, and it's very, very good to see you and following your show, seeing the people from Sierra Leone, where we went during the war. And I got a great ties with the people of Sierra Leone because they were there for us during the war when we went to Sierra Leone. Johnny and myself, who you play with in Liberia, Biggie John, commonly known as Biggie John. So I've had a little bit of connection with the people of Sierra Leone, so I'm happy to be here.
Thank you very much. And you got plenty of Sierra Leoneans on this channel tonight. You've got Liberians, I can see them, they're giving us the thumbs up. And please, ladies and gentlemen, spread this video to family and friends. Let it go viral, because what we're about to talk is history and the now. Zo, this is the first question to you. I know you have, a soft spot for the people of Sierra Leone, because when the war erupted, that's where you and others that I know went to seek sanctuary, and there were no regrets because you were well looked after. Tell us about your Sierra Leonean journey when you left Bassa community and had to flee your boyhood home because of the war.
So it's all started in 1996 when we got on a ship and went to Sierra Leone. And the ship got disembarked, and we got off the ship and got in Sierra Leone. Didn't know anyone, but sometimes when you're a soccer player, you have the opportunity to get in contact with other people. So as we said, brings soccer speaks the same language all over the world. So we got to Sierra Leone, and one of our friends by the name of George Gabriel, who's now with the national team in Liberia, he's one of the trainers. He was playing Ginger. Sierra Leone, and his name Ginger Boy. That's how they call it, Ginger Boy. So we got to Sierra Leone, and then we got picked up, and we saw some official came around from Port Authority. So Johnny and Jenkins Cooper, commonly known as Wire, were first with Port Authority, and then they told the coaches that we have one of our friends from Liberia. He's on the ship by the name of Joshua Zor Bernard. And when they came, they're like, "Oh, do you play?" I'm like, "I think I play a little bit." So went to practice, went down with the team, and we practiced, and that was history. And they took us well in that country. We were living down Kingston Bridge, down Sakita Road, and then we live in Kingston Bridge first in Five Sister Guest House, and then later on they
Yeah.
found a place for us, and
Yeah.
we're at Kingston Bridge at the same time playing with the Port Authority. I had
Yeah.
opportunity to play with Leslie Allen. Leslie Allen.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, I had Lignos, I had Simone Atuka. Those were my friends
Yeah.
I play with. Yeah,
Yeah.
and those were the guys, and they welcome us. We were there,
Yeah.
and the people we live with, I can still remember the family. But her first name
Yeah.
was Syria. She used to
Yeah.
cook and give us food, and they embraced us. So the people of Sierra Leone, I well deserving people, and I respect them for what they have done for not only me, but most of the Liberian that fled our country and went to Sierra Leone. You guys embraced us, and we were there playing at the same times and um, building relationships with people. So I had a nice time in Sierra Leone.
Well said, sir. Thank you very much for that. So let's go straight to the point. Yeah. The president of the Republic of Liberia, George Oppong Manneh Weah, like I said from the beginning of the program, during the sad days of a beautiful country, Liberia, when it was in darkness, I describe it as the only lux in tenebris at the time. How did your relationship with a man who was to come to greatness started?
So it all started when I left from Sierra Leone when the war started in Sierra Leone again. We ran from Sierra Leone, went to Liberia, and
Yeah.
we went back to Liberia after the war started in Sierra Leone. I think it's after 2006. We ran to Mami Yoko Hotel and we got airlifted. We came
Right.
to Guinea and I found my way back to Liberia. And in Liberia, I used to play for a team by the name of Black Stars before, Morovia Black Stars, a first division team.
Yeah.
And later
Yeah.
on, I went to GM Professional. That was the team owned by the president now of the Republic of Liberia, George Weah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I started playing with them. At that time to break through that team was not easy because, as you
Yeah.
know, Coach Jericho, he had most of his
Yeah.
boys from West Point, and you
Yeah.
coming from Basel community up Capital Bypass to break through that team was not easy. But Josh,
Absolutely correct.
Zol. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I broke through the team and we started playing. And one time George came from Europe and I
Yeah.
was very new on the team. And then we had a scrimmage. And I started
Yeah.
playing. And the next thing he started asking the coach, who that little kid? And then we
Yeah.
started chatting a little bit. And I introduced myself to him. And he told me, "Oh, we're having a game tomorrow. You can come and play alongside with us." So having an invitation to play alongside with Warbest at that
Yeah.
time, anyone you're not going to turn it down, Prince.
Yeah.
So I got
Absolutely.
home, was very
Absolutely.
excited, and talked to my family about it. And I went to the game. And even to enter the fence, I couldn't enter the fence because the securities was not allowing me at that time to enter the fence because
Yeah.
Joe was a high profile person, and when he comes
Absolutely.
to the country, like yeah, everyone looks up to him. And so I was standing outside the gate, and security couldn't allow me, knowing full well like I was a new player on GM
Yeah.
Professional.
Yeah.
But then when the gate opened, Prince, how we hustle back home.
Ah.
When the gate opened,
Yeah.
I peeked a little bit, and then he was
Yeah.
standing. He saw my face, and I saw him pushing his head. So apparently, he was telling the security, "I think I saw somebody that I told to come." And then later, the security came, said, "Who here by the name of Josh?" So I said, "Okay." And then I went in and we went to play. Yeah, we had the first game and everything went well. But it all ties in together when
Yeah.
George Weah promised the children of GM Professional, the players at that time, that when they took
Yeah.
the team from second division to first division, he was going to
Yeah.
purchase a car for each and every one of them, right?
Wow.
So the
Wow.
car, when he came back, so we just came to the team newly. So it brought a division in the team, right? When we came
Yep.
back to the team, George Weah said, okay, I'm going to purchase car for everyone. But few other players that brought the team from second division went
Yep.
into discussion and said, look, it's not going to be okay if George Weah purchases cars for everyone because we brought a team from second division. And he promised us from second division that he was going to buy a car for us, you know. So there was a little confusion in the team, and they purchased cars for those that came from second division, and few players were left out. So I took the initiative to bring those players together and see if we can meet George Weah at that time. He was not president, and talk to him about situation in our country to see if he can help us. So there were rumors going around that people wanted to leave the team, and George Weah got angry and he said, okay, he's coming to have a meeting with us. And when he
Yep.
came, the perspective was different. And
Yep.
I galvanized everyone, and we came together
Yep.
and wrote a letter. I led that initiative and gave it to George Weah, and he said, okay, that's what I expect you guys to do. Come together
Right.
and let's see what we can do. So we wrote a letter appealing to him that the country is not easy, things are very hard, and we just want him to
Yep.
help us. So George Weah said, okay, yeah, I understand that. He did what he could. So the
Yep.
guys that got the cars that he bought those cars for, guess what? All of them left the team.
Wow.
They left the team, they took the cars, they left the team. So George Weah went back to Europe, and they told
Yep.
him that, oh, but those guys that he bought the car from, for most of them left the team. So we're just
Yep.
like few people left in the team. So he asked, like, okay, what's that kid that I spoke with that brought everybody together? Let me talk to him.
And that's
That's how I
you.
came in the picture, me, Zoe. And then we started having the communication. And then, you know, he told me that, look, work with the people and see how best he can recruit a lot of people and bring them back to the team. And, you know, from there, we're going to see
Yep.
what to do. And then I went in my community where you usually play bicycle community, recruited
Yep.
most of the young kids in my area and brought them on board. And through that, we became effective again. And moreover, I used to work for his club he had back home. So that's how we met. That's how the beginning of my relationship with George Weah started.
So that relationship was to blossom to what it is today, and it got really, really serious and personal. But we will come to that later. I just want to take your memory back to the struggling days, if you will like, when the president now was growing up in the slums back in Clara town, the days of survivors.
Mhm.
I'm looking at you connecting the dots from survivors to probably Manneh Weah. I think he went to Mighty Barrow and then had
Yeah.
issues there because Salinsa was the biggest at the time, and then he went to Invincible 11. Yes, can you take us
Yeah.
through, please? We've got people here that are interested in that story.
So you see, one of the things that the president right now does good whenever you guys sit together, he likes to bring those stories out because, you know, that's what I tell people in organizational development and strategic change management. There's something called program evaluation where you look at the structure, you look at the political frame, the stories, that the symbolic frame. So stories are very, very powerful. Whenever you tell people your stories,
Yeah.
they going to have a reflection. So that's what
Yeah.
George Weah does most of the time, and people don't understand that. He talks about his stories. He talks about himself. He talks about how he made it from where he came from, how he was denigrated, how people felt that he couldn't accomplish his dream, how people
Yeah.
look at him, they were condescending on him, right? So
Yeah.
he started from Clara time, and the struggle was not easy. So one of the stories that he and I we talked about was when he had his first son, I mean, daughter, and his son Champ. And there's a guy who used to be with him. He stayed around called Sylvester William Carica. When he
Yeah.
had his
Yeah.
son at that time, things were very difficult when he was playing for Survival IE, and
Yeah.
he never had the finances to take care of his son. And he gave a story like sometimes he comes, he would take the okay, the fancy word is milk, but clam. Back home we have the clam and then put in the water and shake it. and it
Of
turns to
course.
milk, and he give it. Yeah, he gives it to his
Of course.
son to drink.
We went through that myself. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's the kind of life he lived at that time. He used to another guy by the name of Phyllis Sion. He's in New York now. He used to borrow
Yeah.
the guy clothes from him. He used to go to the guy and he talks about some of the stories where he used to take the guy clothes, and when they're having dance, he go in there, the clothes is big for him, and it doesn't fit him, but he had to do it because he
The
never
president
had anything. The
you're talking about the great George Oppong Manneh Weah,
George
the humble
Vietnam,
beginning.
yeah, the humble
Yeah.
beginning. That's what
Yeah.
happened. So he would go and take this clothes from this guy, and because he never had it, and then go to the dance. And sometimes the clothes going to be short because he's at 6'2" or something, and then the other
Yes, he's a
guy is
tall
like
guy.
5'2", you know. So Kamo is a very close friend to him. He will take that and go to a party or where he wants to go and comes back because things were not easy. He grew up in a very, very poor family. He
Yeah.
grew up in a home where, when it rains at that time back home, I myself can share that same story where you would have to put buckets in the room to avoid the
And
water
stand up.
from getting, onto the bed. He slept with 4 or 5 person in the same room as we do
Wow.
in Liberia. So his upbringing was very, very tough at that time. And when he made it to IE and tried to go to the national team, and when he went to Cameroon, started to play for Tuneka Club, he started seeing life differently. He's a person that does not think that life is all about himself. He likes to think about other people. That's what people don't understand. They just think
Right.
George Weah is this.
Yeah. So I know you in mid flow, and this is interesting.
Mhm,
You're connecting the dots for us. To be honest, there are people who are very interested in the topic. For those of you who have just joined, I'm talking to a very special brother and a friend, a man who knows the president. I'm talking about the present day president of the Republic of Liberia, George Oppong Manneh Weah, the biggest star ever, African star ever on the world stage. And the proof is there. So I'm not just making this up. So Zo, take us through. You mentioned Tonel Clara Yaoundé Club. So it
mhm,
was the 50th anniversary of the LFA, I believe, and the LFA organized a
mhm,
tournament in which Tonel came, some stars from Nigeria, Iwan Yanwu came, Eastern
mhm,
Lions from Sierra Leone came, and then they had this tournament. But Salensa Diba, James Deba, was
mhm,
the star. How did
mhm.
Oppong stole that show? Because I think I watched almost all of those matches in which he got injured
Hmm.
somewhere. And instead of him being
Yeah.
taken out, he tied a bandage and continued to play. Take us through that process, please, until he got to Cameroon.
Yeah, so it was like the elevator 50th anniversary when all the teams were invited to Liberia, and they had this tournament. And mostly, as we learned back then, they came purposely to see James Diba because James Diba,
Yeah.
he's one of our best player, greatest player in Liberia, and he's somebody
Liberia's
to I
most
respect.
celebrated.
Celebrated soccer star, and
Yep.
there was a big difference between James Ziban and George Weah, right?
Yeah.
That's why sometimes what people say about people and try to motivate you, and things that they say about you try to inspire you. That was a difference between people in Liberia used to say George Weah was like, lazy, and he was not
Yeah.
strong,
Yeah.
he quick to
Yeah.
fall, and James Ziban. That's the differentiation they had. But during the
Yeah.
50th anniversary, when those teams came and when they wanted to, see actually James Deba, but then
Yeah.
George Weah stole the show because
Yeah.
the Wizard Drill, as he's commonly known in Liberia, took
Yeah.
responsibility and started tearing people apart. So the whole coin flipped, and
Yeah.
then the next day we heard um, they wanted to take George Weah to Cameroon, and that
One
particular
minute,
story.
sir. One minute, sir. You use a jargon, started tearing people apart. Will you explain for the
Yeah.
benefit of the audience
Okay.
what that
Okay.
exactly means,
Yeah.
please?
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. So
No,
he was
that's all
dribbling.
right. We
Yeah.
understand the flavor.
he was dribbling a lot, right? So whenever he catches the ball, it's like you can't take it away from him. He's going to pass through, dribble a lot of people, and give it or
Yeah.
sometimes score, right? Because he had the
Yeah.
ability at that time to dribble anyone you can think about. He disgraced lots of defenders in our country.
Yeah.
When we talk about the wizard dribbler, yeah, we talked about the double shovel at that time where
Yeah.
we didn't know what's going on. He brought those things to reality. So
Yeah.
he was just explosive at that time. And then that's how he ended up going to Cameroon. Because that story, after that, he was able to, one time we were sitting down and having dinner in the back, this guy, Prince, if you sit with him, George, we are like stories and as a person
Yeah. He's a
who
storyteller. Yeah.
yeah he likes stories, and whenever I hear these stories, it makes me feel good because as a doctoral student in organizational development and strategic change management, we know stories are powerful. When you use your
Yeah.
stories to tell people how you made it to the top, that serves as a motivational factor to some other
Yeah.
people, because we
Yep.
got some people that are sitting on the fence thinking if I should go back to school or if I should do this. But by sharing your stories and be authentic in your stories, those things motivate people and say, okay, yeah, if Prince can do that, if he can reach to this level, I think I'm going to do that. So I like to listen to those stories because those things are powerful, and that's one of the things he does very well. And then when he started talking about the story after the people approached him to go to Cameroon, he didn't
Yep.
hesitate because he knew the life he was living in Liberia. It was not easy. It was tough. He had his grandmom that was doing everything for him, and
Yep.
she
Yep.
was there with him, and they were from a poor family. I see one of his brothers here too. He's in. He just went to London.
Yeah.
They call him Wallow. He's here watching. He's the
Okay.
little brother of
Wallo, hi,
George
Wallo.
Weah.
Thanks for watching. Yep.
Yeah, he got Claire Hat, something like Claire Hat Weah. That's the name he uses on Facebook. So he's
All right.
watching,
I'll try.
and then
Yeah.
yeah. So he looked at that, and as soon as they're approaching, he didn't waste any time. He accepted because he wanted to leave
Yep.
Liberia and go to Cameroon because he felt that would have been an opportunity for him to be able to excel or to go to professional someday. So that's what he did.
Okay. So the journey to Cameroon started as you've described it. And from what I heard, and exactly why you are on the show tonight is for clarification. So we are
Hmm.
chatting for those of you who have just joined the channel. We are talking to a man who knows the inside out of the President of the Republic of Liberia, His Excellency George Oppong Manneh Weah. From his humble beginnings to the height of power, he now sits in the executive mansion as the most powerful man in that country. How it all started. So welcome to the program. So Mr. Joshua Abel, I like calling you Zor. I still do remember you going for practice though with 11 professionals. You used to like holding your boots in your hand and where you're a very good player you were. But oh dear, I think I've lost him. Ladies and gentlemen, just bear with me. Sia Wamsley. What Sia wants to say? So I want you to bear with me, ladies and gentlemen. I will try to get Mr. Zor back on the channel because this is really interesting. We are talking about the life and times of a great man, George Oppong Manneh Weah, who all of us here, I believe, came to respect for one thing or the other. Even if you don't like him as a president, you don't support him as a president, but I'm sure he brought joy to your face. Most Liberians, at this point in time, I'm talking about the younger ones, do not really understand who this man was because I see and hear a lot of condemnation in terms of politics about education and the rest of it. Look, this guy is in a special class of his own and he is God bless. I can say that. I say this, yeah, and every time I mention this, I get emotionally, caught out because I witnessed it. I saw it happen. I saw him do what he could do and what he was doing, which most of us will not do. Okay? I saw him do that. Sia Wamsley, maybe you want to make a contribution while I try to get Zob back on the program. So just accept the invite. I've already sent you the invite. So just accept. Okay? And ladies and gentlemen on the channel, please spread this video. Please share with family and friends. I am talking about the life and times of George Weah. And just before a minute or two ago, before we lost the guest, this man knows George Weah inside out. They are close up, very personal, very friendly. Rumors that we've been hearing is here to clarify it tonight and is already begun. I was talking about the 1990s when the country was in a complete turmoil. There was nothing but chaos. There was nothing but killing, the killing fields. The only man who brought hope to that country was George Oppong Manneh Weah. He left his safe abode in Europe where he was playing professional football at the time, being well paid, and went back into that country. That's why I never doubted him in the first place. Because anybody who did that then, to leave your comfort zone and go into a war zone where the only thing that was happening there was killings. Okay, let me try to get Mr. Bernard back. Was killings that was happening, hunger, starvation, disease that was happening in that country. The only man who kept going in there was George Weah. That's why I respect him then. That's why I respect him today. That's why I will respect him forever. And we heard the brother said something about clean heart. That's good heart. And that's what he's got, his care for human beings. But before I steal the show, we've got Mr. Zob Bernard back on the program. And I was just going to ask about his first contract. He went semi-pro to Cameroon. And we heard that that contract was worth a whooping at the time, $30,000. But his manager at the time, or those that were associated with him, including the late ambassador to Cameroon, Carlton Capper, they swindled that money. George Weah never ate a penny. Will you weigh in, please? Let's hear the real story behind this.
Well, that story, because one of the things that George Weah focused on at that time was to find his way to get to the top. That was his focus, right? He was not concerned about money at that time, right? Because he knew that, you know, if he works hard and pushes way when he gets to the top, everything going to come, right? So sometimes people who are, you know, dishonest take advantage of situations, right? They think that because this person is not focused on money, and they would go ahead and do some legal proceeding in a way that they would try to like take some of your money away and, you know, act like the smart. And those were the same people that did those things. At last, he had to go back and help them, even the kind of company you talk about. So yes, there were money involved, and that's not to say like he didn't know about the contract or whatsoever, but from some legal proceeding where you bring in people you didn't know, you just left Liberia and have that one focus, having knowing fully well that you came from a very poor family and you think this is an opportunity to go to Cameroon and excel, and then you have other people try to exploit you because of some financial benefit. They think they could take advantage of that time. Yes, they did. They stole some of his money in Cameroon. But, you know, whenever he talks about that, he like, Josh, my focus at that time, I was not thinking about, because if I were thinking about money at that time, he was just going to remain right in Cameroon, or he was going to naturalize right in Cameroon, because when he started playing in Cameroon, the Cameroonians couldn't believe it, to find someone from Liberia that was very, very explosive, right? And someone who came to Cameroon and dominated the Cameroonian soccer at that time. So it was very, very difficult back then to see someone from Liberia by the name of George Weah coming to Cameroon, a football country, and dominating the first division league.
Miller. Emmanuel
Roger
Kunde,
Meda, you had
and the
all those
rest of them.
guys,
Yeah, and
every
those
one
were
of
their
them.
time.
That's why every one of
Yeah,
them respected George Weah today. So
yeah,
he like, yeah, Josh, they stole some money, kind of copy, they did all kinds of things, they cool. But his primary focus at that time, he was not thinking about it because he felt that there were a lot of things ahead of him that he would have gone to and achieve and become successful. So his primary objective was just to train hard, work hard, focus, and then go. So yeah, there were some money issues that happened in Sierra Leone that certain people were dishonest and
yeah.
stole some of his money, but he moved on.
Okay. Just before I go to my next question, the two greatest players of our time that we know from Liberia are essentially James Salensa Diba and George
Mhm.
Weah. And there was deep, great rivalry between them. And these are stories that you will know. We heard
Mhm.
from the outside, yeah, like there was division in the camps, yeah, like Lone Star. When you got two big stars with ego,
Mhm.
one got big ego, and he's got
Yeah.
certain players that on his side, the other one has got the other side. What really, in your own words, Zor, set these two people apart? What's different about these two people? What's special about these two people?
I would say one person on the other side kind of humble, right? He's down to earth person, and the other person on the other side just, I'm the man here. That's how I look at the both of them, between George Weah and James Diba. Um, George Weah, was a humble person, and he felt that he could learn and achieve a lot of things being humble. James Diba was one of our best players in Liberia, as you know, and he's a good guy, very explosive, powerful, but he's this kind of person who like, okay, I am the man here, right?
Yeah,
And when it came to the national team, when George Weah went to Europe, when he went to France, he also helped negotiate it, make most of those guys that play like the
yeah.
Kelvin Sibley, the James Diba, the Joe Namwe, the
The Prince
Thomas
Day.
Koyo, yeah, the Prince
Yeah,
Day.
Christopher,
He was the
Christopher.
one, Christopher Ware, he was the one that initiated those things and get those guys to Europe. If he was someone who was selfish, right, and he just wanted
Yep,
things for himself, he would have done it
yep.
differently. All the guys that I just named, the Massa Engineer, every one of them live with George. We are in Monaco, live in his house in Monaco. And then he
Yeah,
connected them to the various teams, right? That's
yeah,
how
yeah,
most of them got connected. I could remember George, we had shared a story a long time ago. But let me come back to the question. Let me just continue with that. I'm going to insert that later. So
yeah,
that's how it happened on the national team. Now, when I came to the national team, as a struggling kid from junior professional, and how did I come
yeah,
to the national team? My
yeah,
former coach, Jericho Namwe, he calls
yeah.
on
Great player.
players for the national team, and every time he calls player, he won't call me, right? So he left me
Yeah,
out. So this day came, they had a scrimmage. The professional came to town, and
yeah,
George Weah came at that time. And
yeah,
so um, they called for GM Pro. They sent for GM Pro to come and have a scrimmage with them. And when we had a scrimmage with them, before the game, I told my coach, I like, you never brought me on the national team before. But
yeah.
after this game, today's game, my name will be called on the national team. And definitely, I was very, very explosive. That's how I came on the national team and started to watch
Yeah, you
everything
are
that happened
determined.
on the national team, right?
Yeah,
George Weah built his team around James Diba because George Weah knew that Liberia at that time we couldn't survive without James Diba. George Weah says that on the
oh,
practice ground. He tells people
oh,
all the
yes.
time. He like, look, guys, my team is built around James Diba because he gives James Diba that respect, knowing fully well that
Yeah,
James Diba was one of our greatest players, although he didn't make it up to the level of George Weah. But
yeah,
George Weah acknowledges that whenever the national team goes for practice, he make that statement. Even sometimes when they're going back to Liberia or for game,
yeah,
James Diba doesn't want to go. and he would try to talk
Yeah.
to him to bring him back to our country. So that's the difference between those two people. Like one were like down to earth and willing to learn, and the other person was like, okay, I'm the man here. So that brought a little
Yeah.
bit of tension between the two people. And then what actually happened, maybe you heard the story during Liberia and Nigeria game when Liberia
Yeah.
won 2-1. We were
Yeah.
depending on James Deba to come to Liberia at that time to play. James Deba
Yeah.
did not show up for the game. Rather,
Hmm.
some of the players that Kevin Sidway called and said James Deba said he's not coming to Liberia for the game,
Oh
because he
dear.
just don't think we're going to beat Nigeria. That's what Kevin said. I don't know if James Deba said that, to be honest
Right.
to James Deba.
Yeah.
And then so because of that, he didn't show up. Liberia won the game 2-1. And the next game he came, that's when George Weah told him, he said, no, you are not going to play. Because when we needed you, you
Ah.
didn't show up. George
Aha.
Weah said, no, you're not going to play. And at that time, I was on the camp, and it was like confusion. That was on a Charles Theater at that time. And George
Yeah.
Weah told him,
I
look, we
remember that
needed
one.
you. We needed you to play against Nigeria. You didn't show up. And then you came for this game, but you're not going to play. Oh, Prince, it was crazy to tell James Deba in Liberia, the
Yeah.
Liberian celebrated soccer star, to
But
not
you're
play
not
a
playing.
game that he turned
Wow.
up on. So James Deba left the camp. He went to Prince Day at that time. John Mayer guy and Prince Day were in the room, so I was sitting there with them. And
Yeah.
then James Deba came to Prince. He said, "Look, Prince, but you knew I was George. We didn't want me to play. Why you didn't tell me? You make me to come all the way here." Prince said, "I didn't know. He didn't tell me, right?" So James Deba
Yeah.
left. He went to one of the hotels called Picasso Hotel, and Morovia were tense at that time to have
Yeah.
James Deba not playing. And he's our celebrated soccer star. But sometimes
Absolutely.
people will have to set principles that people will have to follow. And that was the
Very
principle
true.
set at that time by George Weah, that look, you are not going to play because the time we needed you, you didn't show up. And now you come here, you want to play, you're not going to play. So we saw ministers coming on the compound, the president, the information went to Charles Taylor that, oh, James Deba, George Weah is saying that James Deba is not going to play.
Yeah.
As you know, Mr. Croman, to have Deba in Liberia and you don't want to celebrate a
He's
soccer
not
star to
playing.
play, it's something
Yeah.
different. The whole country is going to, yeah. So
Yeah.
later on, the president sent Edwin Snow, who was the LFA chairman at that time, president, and
Yeah.
Kadiatu, who was the special assistant to the president. We just saw a lot of government officials' car coming on the camp, and the next thing, George Weah went to meet the president, and the president told him, so look, I respect your decision. You know,
Yeah.
you are the leader of the team. I respect whatsoever you say that JD Bass shouldn't play. That's okay. But please, I beg you, that Liberian way, please allow
Yeah.
Diba to play, or else the people going to kill me. So George Weah stated
Okay.
reasons why, yeah, he never wanted Diba to play. And
Yeah.
but he has to respect the president. He said, okay, Mr. President, if you want him to play, that's not a problem. He can play because
Yep.
he doesn't want people to think like, oh, good, George Weah doesn't want to respect the president, right? So
Yeah.
Diba played at that
Exactly.
time, and he scored 2 goals for us at that time. We
Wow.
won the game 2-1. He was the one that scored our 2 goals. And I
The
could
two
remember after
goals.
he scored those goals. And yeah, it was so inspiring. So that's the little rift that was between those two people. But
Right.
they
Two
got a
big
deep
stars.
connection. They got a deep connection, right? George, we are
Yeah,
always
some people were
referred to
saying that
James
they
Deba.
even related. There was talk that they were related. That James Deba was
Look,
the
I
one
would
that
tell
took Weah to Barrow, but he was on the bench, so
I,
that's how he left and went to IE.
I would tell you that before Deba mom passed away, I think it was 4, 5 years ago, I went to Liberia.
Yep.
I didn't know her. She was standing at the gate, at George Weah's gate, right? We were driving, coming in the yard. George Weah and myself were in the bike, the driver and one of the security guys. We were driving,
Yeah.
coming the compound. I didn't know James Deba mom at that time. May her soul rest in peace because she's dead now. But she was standing at the gate. And the first thing
Yeah.
George Weah, I saw him, getting closer, he was, oh, that's my aunt. That's James
Hmm.
Deba mom. That's my aunt right there. So
Wow.
he brought the glass down, told the security, he said, hey, let this woman in. That's my aunt. Now James Diba mom, right?
Wow.
So the lady came in. We went in the room. We went in George Weah room. We were there. He said, Judge, that's my aunt right there. That's James Diba mom. Probably she tried to get in contact with Diba. She couldn't get in contact with Diba, and she,
Yeah.
came to me. So
Yeah.
later he called the woman in the room, and she started saying that she's not feeling well, and she trying to
Yeah.
get in touch with Diba. She couldn't get in touch with Diba, so she thought it wise to come and find him. So George Weah
Yeah.
told her to sit down. The server gave her food, and she explained how
Yeah.
she was not feeling well. He gave her money.
Yeah.
He gave her money to go to
Yeah.
the hospital, and then asked the security to drop her home. So that's how the
Yeah.
story and the connection started coming. That
Right.
George Weah and James Deba are family members, right? Because the Basel
Yeah.
people, they like a lot of people, and
Yeah. The
so
family.
that's how he
The
started.
family.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
telling the story that the George Weah mom, I mean James Deba mom was his aunt. So that's how the connection. I started putting those things together. So they had a
Yeah, I
good
know,
time.
I know, I know the Omar. I saw her a few times, yeah, from the Chubo side of things, because I
Hmm.
don't know what was the connection there, whether that's where the Omar live, Chubo on the old road, because every
On the
time Barrow
oral.
play and yes, on the old road and Barrow play,
Hmm.
it would be a special parade and day in Chubo, celebration all night, and Deba was always there. Up to this day, I
Hmm.
don't know what was the real connection between the Bassa people in Chubo and James
Hmm.
Deba, he had always been there and they always celebrating. Maybe it was just a fan base. But at this point, I wanted to go back to Cameroon briefly. So George Weah appeared on the scene, like you rightfully said, and he stole the show because before George Weah went there, it was all about
Hmm.
Ghanaian football. Ghanaian, Kofi
Yeah.
Abre and the rest of them, they the one that was shining.
Hmm.
And George Weah went there. George Weah became the main man. And the Cameroonians started naming their children or George
Hmm.
Weah.
Yep.
Will you speak on that a little bit, please? Because yes, he went there, he changed the dynamics, he put the Ghanaians behind the scene, he became the front
Hmm.
man, and then from there, if you can take us through with the national team coach at the time, Claude Leroy, the man who recommended him to Arsene Wenger, the great Arsene Wenger, where the European journey started. I want you to make that connection, please.
Yeah. So when we were growing up, Prince, whenever you see a good player, you want to imitate that person. You want to take that person's name. Even in America and parts of the world that people live, whenever you see a celebrity or someone who is a positive image to your community, sometimes that's how we got those names, right? So when he was
Yeah,
explosive and would play in Cameroon and his name was all over the place, so family members at that time, want to have that connection with George Weah, and when the born the children started naming the children, giving the name George Weah, giving the name George, or mainly they started giving Oppong, right? Oppong,
yeah,
George, Oppong, So they started naming the children. They started going all in the newspaper, and um, you go to the hospital, and when kids were born at that time during the George Weah's era when he was playing Cameroon, most of them started
yeah,
getting those names, like George Weah. And that was a game that I think was between, if I'm not mistaken, it was between Tunea and Yion Douala, if I'm not mistaken. And Claude
yeah,
Lira that you referred to, after that game, I think he called Arsenal Wenger and said, "Look, there's a
yeah,
guy here that I really want you to take a look at."
yeah,
So Arsenal Wenger was like a difficult first when Claude Leroy told him that there's a guy from Liberia, you know that I want you to take a look at. So he didn't give that credence because the name Liberia, you don't expect any good player at that time
yeah,
because we were not on
yeah.
the world stage at that
On the
time.
map.
So
Yeah,
he expected to hear a player from Ghana, or he expected to hear, a player from Cameroon or Nigeria,
yeah,
those places,
yeah.
but not to hear
Senegal.
that, I should come from all the way France to come and see a player from Liberia. So Claude
Yeah,
Leroy kept pushing it. He like, look, I'm telling this guy, you don't want to miss on him because he's very good. He explosive. So Arsenal Wenger came and had the game, and the wizard drill, he does his thing. And after that, he got convinced, like, oh, I think I need to take this guy with me. So he went to Monaco, the same thing, falling on the floor, going to dribble 5, 7, 8 people at the same time, but he's still going to be falling on the floor.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's what he
yeah,
used to do. He felt a lot when he was playing.
yeah,
But
yeah.
he started taking the game seriously and going to the gym and start getting personal coaches. And one of the things that George Weah said that make me laugh today anytime I see him, when we talking,
Yeah.
he like, Josh, he like, guess what? I love to play soccer. I like the things I do. And then the people paying me on top of him, they say, go do what
Exactly,
you love to
exactly.
do best. And then
Yeah.
they're paying me on top of it. He like,
That's why
so,
the guy excels so much.
yeah, that,
Exactly. Yeah.
George Weah said that. He like, Josh, can you imagine? I can understand things that I love to do, right?
Yeah.
And look, I would say this about the president now because that's his past story. Let me say this here because
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
kind of funny. There was a guy by the name of Coach Pumping. I think you heard about him before.
I
Coach
know Coach
Pumping used to be
Pumping.
in Liberia.
Yes, Coach Pumping.
Coach Pumping said
I know him.
when he and the president was in Southtown, right, in
Yeah.
Liberia, that a county, Grand
Yeah,
Creole
Sastan
called
country.
Southtown, right there. Yeah. So he said
Yeah.
when he and the president was there, he would tell me, he said, Josh, don't never tell the president this because if you tell him, he's not going to give me anything again, because George Weah was sponsored because I was his friend. So he used to give me
Yeah.
money. So
Yeah.
he tried to bring George Weah's story, how he was so passionate about the soccer game. And then he would say, Josh, what George Weah did when they were coming up? Like after the training, after the practice, he would just take his practice clothes, the clothes that wet, and he would just fold
Yeah.
it and throw it
Yeah.
behind the door. And then the next morning he goes and take it up and put it on and go back on.
Back on
We
the
did some
field.
of those things, Prince. Yeah, we
Yeah,
did some
I
of those
know.
things. So
We had jokes about him, and people were talking about him all over the country that he
yeah,
doesn't want school. He won't do anything else. He would just play soccer. When people want to go out and enjoy themselves, George Weah is going from door to door begging people, to form some kind of six aside or some kind of team just to
yeah,
go roll the ball and just dribble
that's what
people.
he does.
Yeah.
That's what he does. Look, he said, George Weah, he said, Josh, don't tell him because you tell him he's going to get mad at me and he's not going to give my little thing again. Giving small little
Yeah,
money that
of
George
course.
Weah
Of
did help
course.
him.
Of
Yeah,
course.
little purse.
Yeah.
So he said that. So we just started cracking up. You're like, Josh, he would go to practice. The clothes going to be dirty. And he would just put the clothes behind the door. And the next thing he takes it and wears it the next day and goes for practice, right? So, it was like someone who had his focus on his soccer game that he wanted to play. And he felt this was the only thing that he could work around to make him successful, right? So he
Yeah.
decided to do that and he played. He went to Cameroon and then he went to Monaco and the story came about people paying me, waking me in, letting me to get up in the morning. I'm going to a gym that I couldn't
Living
afford in
large.
Liberia. I'm
Yeah.
eating 3 times a day. The doctors are checking me every day. They're checking my fat and they're checking me. Yeah. So he
Wow.
like then I'm taking pay like every Monday. My check is in my account. He like these people are crazy. Because how can you give somebody yeah, something that he likes, and that's the only
Yeah.
thing he likes to do, and then you pay him?
Yeah.
So that serves
Then you
as a
pay him.
motivational factor to him.
I see. I see.
Yeah.
I
So
see.
he went
So
there and
again, yeah, as a motivational factor, and he was playing like the swampy field. I think that survival field, the one in Clara town, where by 6 o'clock
yeah,
the game need to end because the water will start coming from under the ground. There
yeah.
was a field that we used to
Look,
go and play.
look,
Yeah, go on.
this guy, up to this time, Prince, I will tell you that, right? The
Yeah.
Clariton that everyone talks about, and there where he doing a development. Not to jump into the political arena, but let me just say something about it.
We are
He
coming
went
to that
back,
because we are dealing with every segment of his life.
yeah, not to jump
Oh,
ahead, but let me just say something about it because
Yeah, sure.
What he did, most of the homes in Clara where he grew up, because as I said, the rain when the rains, people houses were leaking and stuff like that. He went and changed the roof of over 300 homes. He makes sure to
Wow.
change the zinc, the roof in those areas. And then the water you're talking about, when the water comes up and everybody wants to leave at that time the playing, he's still going to inspire people to stay and play, right?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
will tell you a little short story before we go to the next segment. I went to Liberia, I think 2016.
Yep.
We were sitting in the living room because usually when I go to Liberia, I don't stop anywhere else but George Weah's house. There where I got my
Yep.
car parking right now. And I
Yep.
usually stop at his house. He opened his home. And even coming to America, that's a different thing. I would tell you the contribution that George Weah had on me today. That makes some of
Yep.
us, we standing now, we're doing a doctoral program. Some of us, we get master degrees in America. I'm going to come to that later. I know you're going to come to that. But we
The
were,
poor little boy from Bassa community.
yeah, from Boston, the great city of Boston community. That's what I tell my people. I love my area. So
Yeah.
we were sitting, Mr. Krumah, and
Yep.
the night before he had a pain, right? He had a serious pain. He couldn't stand, he couldn't walk and stuff like that. The kind of muscle cramp and stuff. And then I
Yeah.
like, okay, I don't think the way George is in pain like this, I don't think we're going to practice in the morning, because every
Yeah.
morning you go to at this guy's house, every morning you have to go practice basketball or you're going to play soccer, right? That's what we're going
Yeah.
to do when I go for vacation. So
Yep.
this morning, because the pain he was in, I thought we were not going to practice, right? But then
Yep.
early in the morning before 6:30, the guy came to my room and he hit the door. Hey, Josh, we got to go practice. You sleeping? So I'm like, what are you talking about? You were in pain last night. You couldn't stand. And he like, and
For
we
a
want
long
to practice
time.
ground. Yeah, we want to practice ground and practice. I looked at the guy like, what's wrong with this guy? This guy who was in pain, he couldn't lift his leg, and he's knocking on your door like 6:30 in the morning to get ready to go practice. So just to tell you how this guy is very, very passionate about the game of soccer, and he cherishes the game of soccer, and he had done a lot for the game and most for our country and other people, and he has contributed personally to other people's lives. So it's amazing to have this guy serving as our president of that country.
Absolutely. And just before I come to that, we've got Kai Jebo, Jonke. He's watching the program right now. Have you got any
Mhm.
story for Jonke?
No, Kai Jebo, when he was playing at that time, when George Weah other than were playing at that time I was little, right?
Yeah.
Not too late that I can't remember until when I started growing up and started playing with IE and later when you come from Europe and stuff like that. But yeah, Kajabo, we used to watch him when we were little when he was playing. Very good player for Invasive 11 and somebody that but very, very, when I say very, very talented player, those were some of the names that when you call
Absolutely. Very good
in Liberian
winger.
soccer, yeah, it
Yeah.
makes us to retrograde on how Liberian soccer was at that time. Very, very intriguing, powerful at that time. Man, the Car Jebel, all those guys, they ready to play. At that time, you had Joka Wiaka at that time, who used to
Wow.
play. Yeah, Joka Wiaka
Two
at that
left foot.
time. Yeah, you had two left foot. You had Hessel Gray
Coco
at that
Black.
time. Coco Blair. Those are the guys that when they were playing, we were kids. We used to go and watch because our game was
Yeah.
exciting at that time to go see Kajebo play at that time. And
Yeah.
then, so it was amazing to hear that Kajebo is still around. And it's good to know that he's around because those guys were friends to the ambassador, George Weah. And I'm also
Yeah.
happy to see that one of George Weah's sister's son is also on I mean watching. They are 2-3 watching. Those
Yeah.
those kids are people that are very, very respectful and good to see my brother Abdullah Kiatama, a guy who does well in Minnesota here for the Liberian community. Good to see these guys watching and to see my peer group, my peer Paul Mentonia, also watching. So it's good to see most of these guys and to hear from Dakar Jabo stay around.
Yeah. Okay. Let me just welcome all